Hello? Shadow control is on the air. Every person in his life repeatedly encounters magic, something that is inexplicable. And when faced with this, he often forgets, although the consequence remains. And the question is, what is magic? False or true? Magic exists, and it is real. If magic was a fantasy or a deception, it wouldn't have existed for so many thousands of years. And throughout all this time, it has seduced and seduces the masses of people to this day. Magic is the oldest and most numerous religion, the religion of Satan, whose adherents are even atheists. That is why all the prophets at all times said about the inadmissibility of practicing magic, that magic does not lead to hell. And yet, some religions, originally built on the true teachings introduced by the prophets, are openly engaged in magic today. They conduct various magical rituals, offerings, and sacrifices. But after all, the prophets did not do this, and moreover, they bequeathed not to do it. All these actions are imposed by the devil. So is begging. Allegedly poor material benefits of health. But the prophets said that it is not worth asking God for anything, except for the salvation of the soul. It turns out that those who had to fight and resist magic openly serve Satan. Why is she so attractive? When people, knowing about the ruinousness, and nevertheless exchange the eternal for the momentary, ghostly material. Yes, the invisible world exists, and it is diverse, like the ocean is full of unknown life. And together with you, friends, we would like to understand at least a little bit about what magic really is, why it is so tempting, and how the invisible world really works. Hello. Shadow control is on the air. Today, in the section behind the scenes of magical secrets, we will talk with the magician artist Kristina Sindalovskaya. Kristina, hello.
Hello, Yuri.
Kristina, please tell us, how did your journey into magic begin?
Oh, it's been a long story. But I want to thank you for the invitation, for the opportunity to meet with you again in such a pleasant atmosphere. Because you and I have already met on Empire 10, where we met. And I, in fact, always represent myself as a Mac artist. It is Mac who is an artist because I want to show people that stereotypical thinking is evil. Magic is actually much more interesting than what even experts tell about it, because people very often come to magic to compensate for their failure of social life, and I am a completely different type of magical person. I am a professional artist and a professional esoteric. I study traditions. And I would say that I am more of a theosophist, a person who studies religions and traditions. And these are not at all the witchcraft traditions that sorcerers, magicians, witches talk about there, who are engaged in just such primitive witchcraft. I have been interested in esoteric sciences since I was almost 15 years old. And if we talk about religion, my only religion in general is Buddhism, which teaches us to perceive the world philosophically. And Kabbalah is also very close to me, but precisely because of its esoteric position, expanded as a system, as a science describing a spiritual system. And the more I study the sources, the more I find a lot of interesting things in them. What other new religions are? New Age, for example, the direction there was taken from bondage. What flowed from bondage into Christianity, then into Islam, then into all new directions. How was it passed like a red banner from hand to hand? And all the same, we come to the conclusion that once there was such a single myth on earth, because we find very similar plots in many, many forgotten religions. And about the Divine Trinity, or the Father, Mother, and their Son, who was necessarily sacrificed and resurrected. This includes Mitroism, a religion that emerged from Zoroastrianism. These are all the religions of Mesopotamia which influenced the formation of the Jewish tradition, among other things. In other words, it is very interesting to read the original texts in general, and every time I ask people who recite dogma very fiercely, I say to them, well, you have read the Bible yourself. Do you understand that this is the Pentateuch of the Torah? Have you even read the book of Bereshit, the book of Genesis from cover to cover? As a rule, no. This really amazes me because, in fact, if you take this kind of modern esotericism, our world is saturated with esotericism. Just think about it. There are a lot of movies and TV shows that show us that there is a lot of magic around. What's there, I don't know. The dead walk among us constantly there. In the zombie apocalypse, they move there one way or another, and some sorcerers and magic schools are the norm of life. Yes, a person has been brought up since childhood, accepting it as some kind of myth that it also exists. At the same time, very often indeed official religions condemn witchcraft. But what kind of sorcery? Here's one that I don't really approve of either, because I'm in favor of intellectual magic. What is it? What is it? In other words, a person in any case comes to God in his own ways. Everyone has a choice. And in general, the fact that I came to magic through the same tarot cards, which I actually have been doing as a practitioner since about 1988th year. I remember it perfectly, 88th year, because this year I entered the institute. I graduated from LFPU, named after Mukina. It is now the Stieglitz Academy of St. Petersburg, PA. So just this year, I saw an ad for tarot courses in St. Petersburg. In general, this has never happened, and before that, I had already read Yoga Lights there, the letters of Mahat Blavatsky, Eleanor Roerich. Of course, I'm sorry, but I didn't understand the secret doctrine of Blavatsky, of course, at that age. But it was all so fascinating, so interesting. It made an impression. We have all read, I hope, Bulgakov's Master and Margarita. This is also a very philosophical novel, and such books led me to tarot cards. And despite the fact that, for example, in the Choral Synagogue of St. Petersburg, astrology, fortune-telling on cards is condemned. But I still go to all possible open courses, and private ones too. In general, everyone who is looking for training always finds it. Again, I always say that temples often have excellent libraries. People go to temples, read books. Don't listen to what they tell you if you haven't read it. You think with your own head, draw conclusions. Here, too, I like to repeat to people the definition of magic given by Aleister Crowley. Magic, this is the science and art of changing reality at your will. But people,
Do you agree with this term?
I absolutely agree with this, and I emphasize it, science and art. Science, after all, involves deep study. You know, no one will teach a first grader in school either higher mathematics or quantum physics, simple literary works, if he does not even know how to read properly yet. You need to understand what you are doing, because sometimes you really have to experiment and mix different traditions. That is, magic for me, this is, after all, including a way of life. The way of life of the Creator, the way of life in the system, with an understanding of this system, how it works. That is, in principle, what quantum physicists and the same Tatiana Chernyshov, a brain researcher, are telling us now. For example, that consciousness does not exist as a body. Everyone has already discovered this. Did esotericism talk about this? Well, listen to 5,000 years for sure. Because the Jews have 5,700 some year now. Literally, in our 21st century, a completely walled-up library was accidentally opened in Tibet, which contains the history of mankind for 10,000 years. You understand that, in fact, living in the 21st century after the birth of Christ, we really know very little.
And why?
Well, maybe.
Share your opinion.
Maybe. Because, so to speak, we now live in a consumer society, and education has been getting worse and worse and worse for a couple of centuries. First of all, of course, it is very profitable for the powerful of this world, so to speak, to have fewer educated people, because it is easier to manage stupid people. When a person does not understand how the system works, any system, well, actually, he descends to the most primitive such animal level. The example of Kabbalah, which claims that there are 5 components of the soul of every person, is very interesting. Well, that is, I do not know any individual subpersonalities there. This is not a psychosis, but, well, 5 parts, like a mosaic. Yes, that is, you can perceive it there. I do not know how some internal manifestations again. In other words, a person has an ordinary animal soul, the most primitive, which does not think about the spiritual, which is occupied only with material problems. Yes, why? Quickly get a job, take out a mortgage, plow, then drink beer on the couch. Here it is, the animal soul. And nothing else is needed. But a person at the same time has 4 more souls, and this is if he develops them, if he at least has the desire to have, at least intentions, that is, if there is no possibility. But you at least lie down in the direction of dreams, but crawl there. Well, at least do something. Yes, that is, the space will always support the first step, but all the same, a person needs this so that he himself decides that he wants to be enlightened. And these hypostases of the soul, after all, this is the second part of the soul, this is the spiritual body, right? The most primitive, animal and spiritual, they go hand in hand. This is contained within us. This is how we differ from animals, which, after all, do not form either monasteries or religions. They have their own organization, complicated in some animal species, but still a person is a conductor of spiritual energies. And all religions teach this, but esotericism has always taught this. When we separate magic and religion and say magic is bad, oh, religion is good. Don't think, believe. This is also a black matter. It's a dirty business, because dividing into bad and good, putting blinders on a person so that he doesn't think it's bad. To understand how this happens, what it depends on, and how interesting worlds work in general, because we haven't even reached the world of the dead yet, although this is also an inseparable thing, because the tree of life has a reverse side of the tree of death. And how I always shock people, too. They say, like, you wrote that you are a demonologist, but a necromancer. What a horror! And what are you doing anyway? Do you have a dead raven? I say yes, it's real. I also boiled this head myself. He says, how did you kill him? I say no, but this. This is a bird from the Red Book. I found it with honors. Actually, it was dismembered. Here a magical artifact is made of it. And so on, and so on. That is, this and even the remnants were burned with honor, because according to the tradition of the northern Scandinavian Vikings, the raven is the totem of the supreme god Odin, and accordingly, the raven was sent as an honorary king to Valhalla, so that he ascended there, so he ascended. But, actually, what am I talking about? To the fact that the study of traditions in magic is actually necessary. And, in general, all esotericism presupposes continuity.
In more detail.
In order for society to continue to flourish, and people to remain at the animal level. It is easier for them to serve everything in a simple form, since I say chewed gum. Here's a beautiful rag, here's a candle lit. A conspiracy was Googled from the internet, read, and immediately. Yeah. How's that? Oh, I'll watch the movie, podcast, TikTok. TikTok is better. That's what it is, yes. That's such an animal education. Exactly an animal. There are certain higher magic. Again, as I have already told, yes, there are certain canons. We have Plato's neo-pagans and Plato's writings of his disciples, which formed the basis of esotericism and Hermeticism. That's what I'm doing, continuing these traditions. I'm studying Hermeticism. I'm not studying Plato's paganism. I'm reading Aristotle. It's hard what to do. Brains need to be developed. And so I had to learn German, so to speak, although it was very useful to me for reading the grimoire on Munich demonology. The last language I learned was Hebrew. Yes, I taught him in choral synagogues. And again, in order to correctly write texts on my magic altars, write a spell correctly, read very useful magical texts in the original, including Raziel's book, which has now been published and published in 2 languages, in Army Hebrew and in Russian. That is, I understand perfectly now, but I even have a Bible in 2 languages. Yes, that is, all the texts that are in the Holy Scriptures, including I also use in magical practices. Because as a practitioner, I want to tell you, working with Sephirotic magic, and this is the tree of life, and with the tree of death, which I have already mentioned, this is Klepatic magic. Those very demons. This is the very necromancy that scares people so much. But I told you that Angel Sutton is the angel of death, and in general, the topic of death is the norm of our life. We're all going to die. Lord, everyone has their own deadline, everyone has their own program to fulfill. But in Hinduism it is called karma. Well, in principle, again, the Kabbalah also always has its own tasks that a person must perform. And the fact that many shock themselves, my God, the demon, how so?
Yes, here is a more detailed demonology. As I understand it, demonology assumes that this is a kind of world that can be studied. There is a classification of what?
There is, yes, Yuri. After all, many still have little understanding of what a demon is.
So what is it?
After all, a demon. This is also the ancient Greek word daemon, and a daemon is a helper spirit. Here in the structure of hierarchies, angels are responsible for spiritual development, and demons are the conductors of material energies. Therefore, everyone who prays that, oh, there is an archangel so-and-so, send me money, wealth, and generally a salary increase, early mortgage payment will not receive anything. Angel will send him more work, opportunities for new loans, and so on and so on. That is, work. Demons are more utilitarian. It is all material requests that are just for demons, but they work on the law of equilibrium. In principle, I don't spoil love spells there. In general, my specialty as a demonologist and necromancer is a cleaner. It's just that in order to clear a person of negativity, especially from the generic, what has accumulated there. Yes, you need to go into the depths, into the world of the dead, and calculate how this negative was made. And in fact, it is removed in the opposite direction. Therefore, I perfectly understand the mechanics. I study how these damages were induced in order to remove them. But it all works both ways. That is, in fact, I am doing something positive after all. But, well, there are sanitation facilities. We can't do without them. But here I am such a magical sewer. Otherwise you will drown in it all.
In other words, in order to solve problems that are connected with the world of the dead, with those clients who come out, you study demonology.
And demonology and necromancy. And moreover, if you study all of this, and undergo initiations in the traditions in which I work, and this is cipherratic klephatic magic, which requires study, as I have already said, this is the science of initiation. You can't just say that I'm a witch today, and I'm going to start working in the churchyard. I'm going to take a walk around the cemetery. There's something there at the same time. Here's a neighbor who looked at me badly. I'll print out the photo and bury it. On the internet, he writes like this. But this is nonsense. It's just, I'm sorry. This is such blatant stupidity and ignorance, but at the same time, there are a lot of freaks in the magical space who say that they work like this. They are cool specialists, and people don't want to figure it out. People want to let me pay the money, and there will be a result. And no one has cancelled the law of equilibrium, and demons will also come to this person, also together with the angels of punishment, and he will say so. The angel Sutton wrote out a fine to you here. Satan is now quickly putting you in a frying pan. But these are jokes with jokes. Yes, that is, in fact, again in bondage. In the Hermetic tradition, neither heaven nor hell exists. And there was an Orthodox priest who recorded a bomb video called You Live in Hell. And this is really correct. After all, a man. Someone lives with their demons and plays games right like that, so to speak. Someone plays games there, I do not know, with the dead. There are plenty of such people. And in fact, again, as I said, yes, that is, in order to work at my level, you need to have knowledge and dedication.
I wish I could. Here you have studied demonology, they come to you with a problem, with the help of which you rid the client of a curse. A demon, a settler, whatever we call it. How does it work?
I always make an initial diagnosis. I always look at the causes. Here I'm looking for the root cause. Unfortunately, in my practice it happens, but often enough, that the client is to blame himself. He doesn't want to admit it. He thinks that, but it was a long time ago, and, in fact, what to remember about it. That is how our psyche works. Here is a concrete example. A young lady came, who somehow does not get along with her personal life, no one meets. If they meet, they don't get married. Well, in general, such a typical situation is typical. Everything seems to be fine, beautiful, smart. It would seem that she earns. I'm looking at the diagnostics. She has a spell that she did herself. I say, well, why do you want to arrange a personal life if you have already bewitched someone? She tells me, no, I didn't do it. I say, sorry, that's good. Let's dig up the information. Next, yes, it's old. I call all the accompanying ones, that it was in adolescence, which is about like this and so. She says, well, it's nothing. I say it's nonsense. It's already working on you. Here you are soon 30. Yes, and all this time, and for sure, the poor boy can't arrange his fate because of you. And you're paying now. And what do you want me to deliver you from God's punishment? Well, in the sense of the punishment of higher powers. You don't even want to admit your wrongdoing. Is this the norm for you? I am surprised by such people in general, so I immediately have a dilemma. But should I help them? And here are the people who come, having already created families, but with sick children, and they say, help, save. The kids are sick, and I'm looking at a cemetery spell there. And this is payback. And what to do? No, of course, I immediately say that it is possible. We take it all off. We clean it all up. We clean your children. But according to the law, the balance will roll back so. Choose. It's your choice. Are you ready to die for your children? They don't even agree 50-50, but do you know what percentage? Suppose what percentage agree?
10.
Practically. 10%. People don't want to sacrifice their peace of mind, yes, their reputation. And the fact that I'm sorry, there's cancer. They say that it's nothing now, modern medicine, we can cure everything. If only her husband would stay, and no one would know that she did it. Somehow it's out of ignorance that it all goes.
I'll clarify. That is, it was a cemetery spell. Well, if we analyze this example, once upon a time, or was it a spell on the person with whom she or he lives?
It was a spell on the cemetery, on the man, on the husband with whom he lives, from whom sick children were born later.
But this is the situation.
And this.
A direct warning.
And this, and that doesn't stop people. Do you understand? And so they tend to say, no, we have there, I do not know. We have demons, settlers, we have everything, and very often, in 70% of cases, I find that this is a punishment. Punishment. That in principle, again, here is a very hot topic, such drug addiction and alcoholism, in general, dependence in magic. And I always say that, guys, I can clean it, but you understand, I'm going to expel these alcoholic demons. I'm going to expel this demon Podsilenza. If a person does not replace it with anything, the holy place is never empty. The demon will either turn around with relatives there, bring a legion there, and it will be even worse. That is, a person.
Can I replace it?
In a spiritual way, right? To start developing, to do something, to read, to engage in creativity in the end. I don't know how many examples we have when people there became artists even at the age of 70, but they didn't degrade, but they started something. Yes, that is, some kind of work with the world, contact. This is also a spiritual work.
And how does a person even have all these demon settlers?
Good question. It's different for everyone. Here's another small digression. What are these demons, settlers, and so on? Why are they taken from a person at all? A normal, healthy person simply has them in the manifested. In the manifested state, they do not exist. We all have a dark side, like the obverse and reverse. This is normal, but the task of a person. This is what I told about the heel, the task of the soul. Here the animal soul goes side by side, here hand in hand. This is how hands in prayer with the divine soul, with their spiritual half, and they actually pull each other up in general. The task of a person is still to find in his life, but if not enlightenment, but at least to begin to feel like something more. Yes, it is in the structure of the divine, spiritual, if you want, yes, here in the system of the universe. And here are all the demons and malicious entities. They take possession of a person when his spiritual part, so to speak, is simply hammered by an animal to the state of almost, well, I do not know, there is a grain there. Well, in general, well, quite. And, of course, when a person goes to the end, only demons will remain there. They will all come out, hierarchical entities will come in, who will say, oh, we will attach another feed, so let different settlers eat it there. Although, in fact, that's all that concerns hierarchical entities, too. This is an interesting, stereotypical moment. In fact, strong hierarchical demons do not work with ordinary people. Now, if a person tries to sell his soul to the devil himself, a hierarchical entity, he will begin to cause Lucifera there. The girls gathered and decided, let's not be petty, we'll call Lucifer in, or some kind of Satanville alive. Well, who else is on hearing? Then we had a beautiful series here, so to speak. It doesn't matter. I don't remember the name. He was a beautiful Beelzebub there, who had a hat with a fly on it. In, so we'll call him. And to call Tijuana, to call. And someone showed up. That's who showed up. Low-frequency spirit. A hierarchical high entity, but such outrages will not react. That is, this is not interesting to anyone. In order, so to speak, to attract the attention of a large hierarchical entity, especially in general, to try to bend the soul, it's necessary to be what a great person to be. This is also all from ignorance. That is, in fact, all the people who are engaged without, as I have already said, the study of traditions, feed these very settlers. They thereby, with their ignorance, yes, here again, ignorance does not get rid of responsibility. This is an aggravating factor. They tell me, oh, but I didn't know. I say so, it's bad. That's bad.
Kristina, I have such a question. Who are you helping, if you see everything, well, what you described? But this is just ignorance, yes, some kind. And people themselves are responsible for their actions. What do you undertake then?
Listen, Yuri, first of all, I teach people, I teach system vision and magic as magic systems in my School of Magic Diadem.
Here. For you, this is primarily art.
This is both science and art. And I also want to show by my example that magic should bring some positive results. For me, as a professional artist studying magical sciences and systems, understanding how it works, including how some energy is lacking, and I understand that, for example, the realization of material goals, I need sponsors to launch a startup. It is useless to turn to angels. They are, so to speak, in this regard, they are not a material helper. I turn to a planetary demon, for example, Jupiter, who will perfectly help, so to speak, to acquire a patron, to illuminate my talent to the right people who will say, "Oh, an interesting artist, you need to buy a picture from her," or help to do an exhibition, and so on. And this is the result. This is the result of working with demons. The correct result.
But you yourself said that they would demand something in return.
Now I'm going to say this sedition, everyone needs love. But for some reason we perceive love as something animal, carnal, sexual, and so on, but it is spiritual energy. You won't believe it. If you send the energy of love to the world of the dead, and even to demons, this is the best payment that they lack. After all, the task of the world of the Spherith tree of life is to lead all the light of God down into Klepo to the demons, so that they become a new tree of life. To illuminate, this is all to fix. And if we understand that evil has its causes, if we try to correct these causes, to saturate this world as much as possible with light, the light of reason, the light of divine love. Unfortunately, these are all empty words for many people. Why? But because at the level of a primitive animal, people do not perceive it. You understand this only when you already have a good educational base.
We're back to the beginning.
Again,
How important is education and self-development?
always and in everything, but especially in magic. Therefore, when people come, they say, "Oh, I'm a witch there. We have knowledge, breed, show all sorts of tricks." And it's not difficult to show tricks in general. I know that someone is there to make the water boil, it's just that microchips of dry ice are thrown there. Well, in general, in fact, at school I had such a set of a young chemist. Hello? Again, the art of alchemy is based very much on chemistry and physics. A person who studied well at school, he will always come up with some beautiful visual trick. But it's not magic, it's a psychological effect. Here are NLP psychologists. Actually, this is verbal magic, right? This is assimilation. After all, I also have a second higher psychological education. Why? In order to legally help people. That's legal. Because if I say that now I'm summoning demons, and we're going to do a ritual on your startup, and your business will go, then it's illegal. And if I have funeral services and counseling prescribed in my sole proprietor, then I can calmly lay out tarot cards, even conduct a certain ritual, pay taxes, and sleep peacefully.
Please tell me, well, here are the queries and what you use. Let's start with this perhaps, what people come to you with.
People come with very different questions. In fact, because I am constantly developing myself, Rastas, my own new methods. So I have created my own deck of magic portals, and now I'm launching a training course on this deck. I have mastered transformational tarot games as an element of psychotherapy, but in fact, it is a game diagnosis and ritual for those who are really afraid that I would conduct some rituals. And these methods all work. And indeed, people are most interested in material issues. But the first leading places are love and money. Everyone needs a harmonization of relations. As I have already said, I do not do love spells in principle. I am against the suppression of someone else's will. And it's easier for me to clean, harmonize with a person, and in general somehow attract a really partner in fate with a couple to harmonize, than to do things like this. That is, as a rule, I do not take languages. I refuse everything. It's the same with brocades. That is, I immediately point a person to the door, not because I'm so straight, white, and fluffy, because I know the laws of equilibrium. And I'm not going to pay for the stupidity of the animal instincts of a person and take responsibility for such actions.
But many sorcerers say that they do everything so carefully that it goes away. Well, I'm not even going to explain that, we all know.
I'll tell you a Kabbalistic secret.
Please.
First of all, the eye of God is not asleep, and Big Brother Satan is watching us all. Secondly, this is exactly the lowest magic, where a person does not work with hierarchical entities like me, but works clearly according to a contract from the cops. And more than that, this is the magical load he drains his mouth. If he has no children, then God be with him. Where, as they say, did he leak this whole thing? These are his problems. Where did he shift it? Again, how he will pay for his deeds after death is also his problem. Because when a person works with low-frequency energies and cannot climb up, down, even higher, even lower, that's right, so work in the system, and work only at the bottom, then he stays there. These are the restless spirits that I see in cemeteries who are trying to inhabit a living person because they lack energy. They still cling to life in any condition. It is from them that these black balls remain, which sometimes roll, but as a seeing person, I see them like black balls that roll along cemetery intersections. These sorcerers call them demons. In fact, this is so much that it has already lost any appearance, both human and animal, and everything. That is, there is a soul that tried to move into people, then into animals, then lost everything. Here is this formless, evil matter. Here is everything. This is a piece of darkness, and again he cannot escape from the earthly plane. And the goal of any person in general is to return back to the light, to God. These are unhappy people. They will not be able to get up anywhere later, and will be stuck here. We will walk with our feet on them. This is the very dust. And we will go to the light, and that's it.
What do you see besides these rolling entities, or something else in the invisible world?
Yuri, the question is also good, and unfortunately I can't answer it quickly. I developed and opened my clairvoyance, the vision of subtle plans, about 2 years ago, from the year 2012. I had a bright vision. That is, so vividly, that I was very shocked, that is, by the fact that, so to speak, I saw dead people like alive, only in a more blurry form like this. I saw indifferent settlers in general, going down to the subway. I saw such terrible entities that I just felt bad and real fear.
And where are the entities that are separate entities, or were they together with a person?
Them, and separate, like symbiotes, that is, that's what they describe in which writers in some science fiction novels it really is, but I want to tell you that at that time I was really actively engaged in cosmoenergetics, and in general, I am a master of river systems. In other words, this is also a development, including spiritual and bodily energies. Rivers are generally healing energy. And so to speak, from such a vivid vision, I was in doubt all the time as a skeptic hallucinating this or that I see. And it was very hard to live in this mode. And I have generally learned to close this vision when I don't need to view anyone, and keep it closed. And only when I make a diagnosis or look at something, a room, a person, I open this knowledge with an effort of will, and then the information is read. But of course, the quality of this vision is already with me, which was originally natural, but it's not the same anymore. That is, right now I can strain myself, look and look there, like if there are some dead spirits, but as a rule, we have a lot of our guardian angels next to us, our ancestors of the dead, who help us. Yes, there are shadows behind every person.
Here are the creatures that you saw through this clairvoyance, or symbiotes. They saw that you see them or not.
That was the worst part.
And what was their intellectual reaction?
Aggression.
Aggression.
Aggression. When I teach my students, because fear is food for low-frequency entities. They feed on fear. And fear is such a big inscription. Come in, welcome to eat served in person. That is, when you encounter something unknown, a poltergeist is there, a manifestation of a spirit, a demon, no matter who. The first thing to do is to get angry as quickly as possible. Get angry and pull yourself together. Anger, this kind of righteous anger will help you calm down. Accept that no one has the right to move in and enter a person without your permission. This is the basis of magic.
That is, every time.
And when you don't know, you are afraid, and put up a sign with a welcome, welcome drink, welcome, we have a buffet. This automatically attracts everyone already. That is, one saw, whistled, the guys are there, get up, went to eat it. Here, when I also studied and trained astral exits, exits from the body, astral flights, movements, I trained at some point to do this in a dream with lucid dreams. Falling asleep, she came out of her body, watched me lying down and flying somewhere there, into some Andes with eagle birds, and somehow returning to the body, again to his sleeping one. From a parallel space, I pulled out either incubi or succubus. In general, the essence of the result. I wake up alone in my bed from the fact that someone is groping me. That's real. I wake up because someone is just brazenly groping me. At the same time, I know that there is no one here except me. I sit down on the bed, turn on the light. Inhale and exhale. I calm down and say, so without permission, who came here? All the military went. Only angels live here, only those whom I personally called, only those who have the same high vibrations as me, and the rest are all out, because I'm turning on the purity of cleaning right now. That's it, let's go clean up. That's it, the essence is gone. Yes, that is, it doesn't matter. Even if you don't have a Reiki channel, and don't have cosmoenergetics, don't have bioenergetics at all. But if you just calm down very quickly, you will always remember that without your permission. No succubus incubus. But if you invite, that's another question. And if you are not invited, everyone leave the room. It is unrealistic to leave. They will really leave. You see, a person actually has much more opportunities than we think. Man is not a trembling creature, not a servant of God. This is not what Christ was talking about, but not about human slavery. He was talking about love and unity with the spiritual world, and that you need to help your neighbor and love your neighbor as yourself. And these are really common religious world truths. This is also in the Kabbalah. It is in any world religion. Do good, but you don't want to be shat on, well, and don't do outrages. It's the same in magic, it's the same physics, sixth grade law of equilibrium, action equals reaction. Anyway, a rollback is inevitable. I say to these sorcerers who say, ha ha ha, I will send a rollback to the egg there. There are such witches like, and I quickly spoil everything, curse, and all the kickbacks are on the egg. Yeah. Well, human stupidity is indestructible.
Please tell us about the working tools.
Look, I brought you to show really my working tools. Here everyone pays attention to the dagger. In fact, it is such a ritual one, and there with an owl from Hecate, such a one from the tradition of Hecate. It is designed to open space, respectively, to designate the element of air instead of a bird's feather. It is symbolic in nature. In fact, here are some kind of combat magic knives that know the taste of blood, sacrificial blood, including mine, because I have to regularly feed knives with my blood, and what a horror! I say it's okay, listen, blood from the finger once, and that's enough. No one opens veins, cuts throats, but some kind of stupidity, by God. But really the most working tool is, including tarot cards, magical altars. Here are magical altars on natural leather. First of all, I make them myself, with my artistic pens. More than that,
And what is the basis of this altar here? Knowledge of what?
it's based on the knowledge that I have. This particular demonological altar of planetary magic is called the irreplaceable pentacle of Beelzebub, who is responsible as the demiurge of the earth for fertility, because Baal is in Hebrew Baal the owner. And actually this name this demon got from the ancient gods, who were demonized in order to be replaced by other more good gods. This has always happened in history. So this particular altar here, where there are excerpts from the Psalms of David. The Psalms of David are very often used as conspiracies, sacred books. In fact, this is the source of conspiracies and spells in classical hierarchical magic. And you need to know what spells, psalms, and prayers to conjure such an entity so that it grants a permanent source of income. But in fact, these altars are what I do professionally as a ma, as an artist, only on natural leather, which in itself is a bloody sacrifice. And this is very important. Neither rags nor pieces of wood are, but all the more synthetically, it's a shame at all. The fabrics are not a bloody sacrifice, only the skin is a tool for a magical altar. Remember the golden fleece, which had incredible power. What is a fleece? The skin is stripped off with laughter from the divine ram, the symbol of the zodiac sign of Aries, associated with the sun, beginning the cycle of fertility. And, in fact, that's why it is a magic tool. Of course, I make these altars.
Do you do it to order, or do you work for yourself for work?
I do it to order for specialists, but I actually know literally a few people who can understand this. Although, again, when I make such things to order, I still give instructions. I tell everyone how to work with it. But if he has no knowledge of hierarchical initiation.
But by the way, we haven't talked, what kind of dedication is this?
Initiation, well, listen, it's like exams, right, that is?
And who takes these exams?
The teacher, the elder in the cult, the elder in the tradition. In fact, this is the same system as in a school institute. A person has unlearned. He passes the exam, so the magic exam is the passage of a certain task. This is called initiation. And then he goes through his tasks. He's good. He, for example, spent the night in a cave as a symbol of death, came out of there as a symbol of a new life. Well done. Everyone met him. Everyone is now you, so to speak, our brother, and so on and so on.
That is, if you teach, then you take the exam. Or are there higher powers after all?
If I teach, I take the exam and call on the higher powers to represent a person, and that I am his guide, and I took him by the handle to this level. And then, accordingly, I am also responsible for it. That's why I don't take everyone as an apprentice.
And besides the responsibility, do you get something?
Like any teacher, I am developing a structure, including my own magic one, because every student of my successful school, even if he left, will never say a single word that he studied with me, but he will be successful in his spiritual development. He is already doing good. And accordingly, this is my merit, because I brought him there. That's my profit. If you want to say there in the other world, yes, she will say, "Oh, Kristina has taught so many good people. Okay, let's give her a discount."
For what?
Well, I don't know. To a place in a starship.
All right. And what else? Here. Well, we figured out the altars. They must be made on the skin necessarily. And, of course, to specialists and for specialists who understand.
You need to learn. In other words, I actually force my students to make altars according to my schemes. Yes, in the process of training, so that they create magical tools for themselves, for subsequent magical work, so that they invest their knowledge with their work. It doesn't matter what they do, they're crooked or not as beautiful as me. But this is the work that they will invest energy in. They will not buy on any AliExpress or where it is customary to buy it. Because manual labor, especially your own, immediately increases efficiency at times. But even if someone is too lazy to draw himself, my work is also very effective. But I still give the person instructions on how to set it up for himself. And it will be much easier for him to work with it, yes, when he gets involved in it. But if he had done it himself, it would have been a starship.
But I have a question. Maybe a person who will take up the work himself, I hope, God forbid, to make some kind of fatal mistake, and something.
Maybe. For this, I actually studied Hebrew. Every sign, every letter must be spelled out correctly, because in Kabbalah, in fact, the main postulate is that the world was created with letters, Hebrew letters. In the beginning there was a word, and the word consists of letters. Accordingly, the letters are magical seals that have creative power. And God forbid, we will rearrange something and write it incorrectly. But this ignorance does not get rid of responsibility. That's it, that's what you need to study for. Because I also see this everywhere now. And why should I study this Solomonics? Here is a little book. I'll redraw it from there, copy it. I won't bother. I'll take a picture on my phone and print it out, and I'll be happy. It won't. Moreover, you will be very lucky if you get nothing for it, and it just won't work. Because, well, as if no one would notice all these stupid escorts. Lenka was calling Lucifer from the next apartment again. Well, the lover came and the husband then caught everyone. That's Satanism. Yes, that's how it happens. This is really the stupidity of the general total. Again, if we're talking about tools, I have a lot of tools, because if I'm doing, for example, Kabbalah magic, there you need certain candles, certain incense, and again, a bunch of different other tools with the same planetary magic are also needed about the same. To create a talisman, you will still have to create it. You need to know at a certain hour on a certain day to do it, with favorable positions of the planets. Right there you need to know astrology. And this is the system. Well, it makes no sense, for example, to make some talismans for money if the planets Jupiter and Mercury responsible for money are in retrograde or in some bad positions. There will be nothing, it will not work. There will be an artle of vain labor. I will also tell you a little secret. When I practice for myself, and especially in the education, and this is still an ancient cult, which is also associated with Plato's neo-paganism. These are the Catanic gods who influenced the development of mythology. Historically, it was customary there to invoke the gods and conduct mysteries in the nude. For what? In order to show that you have nothing but God. That's it. As a goal, as a falcon. So you ask, what is my attribute? My attribute is myself and my knowledge that I have. This is what I need. I'll draw the rest. So again, I have some of my own things. Yes, I sell them. Again, they tell me, aren't you sorry? So I can still do it. And maybe even better. What is it to be sorry for? Moreover, here I have brought you the Tarot Chronicles magazine. There I have a magnificent article about my tarot deck of magical portals, about the 4 arcana that I was able to. Arkan's paintings are small, which I was able to draw during the pandemic. For me, this quarantine has become a blessing. It was a blessing because I focused on such complex energies and was able to translate them into paintings, thereby living. This is a t-shirt of my brand of magical clothing. Here is the catalog that brought arcane justice. I transfer my author's paintings of the tarot arcana to my clothes. Here you see, I have 22 lassos on my skirt, and here is Justice Lassos. I brought it today specifically as a really relevant topic, because it's not just about justice. The magical Hebrew letter that corresponds to this arcana is Justice Lamit. Elami is a training. It is a bullgoad teaching us the law of equilibrium. If we don't want to learn, we get a stick on the ass. So in any case, life will teach us all. This is exactly what my arcane justice is about. And here the goddess Hecate is depicted, about whom I can talk a lot. And unfortunately there is a lot of nonsense, black stuff on the internet. It is out of ignorance that people say, oh, I'm also doing Hecate, she's so and so there. I think, my God, this is it, but where do you come from, dear ones? Name here is the name Legion. By God, when will this ignorance stop? When will you even start reading anything other than the internet?
A little advice for our viewers.
My advice: there is only one way, enlightenment and enlightenment. We have no other way.
Thank you, Kristina. You had shadow control with you. Be vigilant. Have a nice day.